We came up with a crazy idea in 2011 to see whether we could purchase a C-47 or a Dakota or DC-3, however you want to refer to it, that was based here during the European sort of theatre of operations, and see if we could return it to service. I've got a particular interest myself in military aviation and history in general, history of the American forces in this particular area, and I'm also a commercial pilot, so that's my sort of link into the C-47 really. So myself and my father sort of tracked down a couple of what I call aviation sort of junkies, archaeologists, sort of, aviation geeks, however you want to refer to them really, and sort of tasked them with sort of tracking down a C-47 that flew from memory during the war. And when we sort of thought about it, we thought that's probably not going to be possible, but let's follow this idea through and see whether it works out. It was surprisingly easy actually. One of the guys quickly came up with a list of about 5 or 6 potential aircraft that were restorable in his mind. So we followed that process through and found one in a scrapyard in Arkansas in the US in late 2012 that would have been. So we quickly dispatched a team of US experts into Arkansas, and they did a bit of a recce on this aircraft and decided that it was salvageable. And we got it going, and they flew it after about 5 hours maintenance into their base in Florida. So that's where the whole project started really, and it sort of snowballed from there really. I mean, the area that we spent the most time on probably is sort of corrosion of the airframe in terms of the project really. I mean, if you can imagine, what we're essentially doing is taking a C-47, which is the military term for one of these aircraft, which was converted back to a DC-3 after the war and put into commercial service. So we're essentially taking something that's a commercial aeroplane, stripping it right back to its bare bones, making it completely airworthy, and then putting it back into a C-47 military version of the aircraft. So not only have we got to go right through the airframe in terms of taking it apart, taking every little thing out, replacing all the engines, the propellers, the landing gear, removing any corrosion, we've then got to put it back into military form and find all of these sort of original parts, in the manuals, and then try and sort of put it back together really. So it's a massive jigsaw puzzle really, and it's taken a lot of time and a huge amount of man hours, but probably the area where we spent the most amount of time is corrosion. Obviously corrosion of anything is not good, but corrosion on an airframe is certainly not good. So goodness knows how many thousands of man hours that's taken to put that right. And if you look at the project on a daily basis, you probably think there's not a lot of progress being made there, but actually there is, you just can't see it really. So when we bought the aircraft back in 2012, the long-term goal we had, well, there were two really. We wanted to fly in 2019, or June 2019 to be specific. That's the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. There's a huge event planned to commemorate that. There's an event called DAX over Normandy 2019, and they've got about 40 C-47s going to that event at the moment. They've got 20 plus coming from the States making the trip across, and another 20 odd from Europe. So that's a huge event, and that's something we planned right back in 2012. And when we were sat around the table in 2012, we thought, oh, that's going to be easy. That's no problem. But of course, as things have panned out, that's sort of become quite tight as a deadline really. We will make it, but only just. But the longer term goal for our project is to have the aircraft based at Membry, where it operated from originally. We believe it will be the only wartime aircraft to return to its wartime base and operate from there. So that's the goal, and we're also looking at putting a museum at Membry Airfield, just a free to enter museum for the general public, to give something back to the local area and the people that served during the war really. There's no museum as such that sort of gives something back to the Troop Carrier Command and what they did in Europe. So that's the longer term plan, a museum, and for the aircraft to be based with the museum and operate from Membry. But let's break it down. First things first, we've got to get the aircraft flying, and we've got to get it to Normandy next year in 2019, and then see where we go from there.